Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Barely Bookish podcast. Today we are continuing on with Interview with a Vampire Season 2, and we are on episode 4, and I am joined by Candace.
Hello.
I have been doing like Frankenstein, so I was like, and we're talking about something. It's been a lot of Frankenstein here. But I like that I'm on this little like monster era going on.
Yeah, I'm into that.
It's bringing
Classic
great
monster
joy.
era. That's beautiful.
I'm heavily thinking about seeing Nosferatu
Oh,
soon.
Same. I love Robert Eggers' stuff, so I feel like this is not going to be any different.
Not sure how scared I'm gonna be. How the only thing I've seen about it is people keep talking that apparently there's a full frontal scene. So,
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
yeah,
So this is the same guy who did The Witch, The Northman, and The Lighthouse.
haven't seen any of
And The
those.
Lighthouse, if it doesn't have full frontal male nudity, there's still
Mhm.
a bunch of Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson jerking off in black and white in a lighthouse. So I
Hell yeah,
feel as though that's on brand for this director.
fair. It'd be like that. I
Yeah.
just want to see it. I
Yeah,
might
you
be
know.
too scared to sleep, but I've been like slowly going into like a horror
Hmm.
wave recently.
Good choice.
Yeah. I'm like, I want to be a horror lover, you
Hmm.
know? It's like,
Come to the dark side. We have
I
kink.
know, it's just one of those things I want to be into.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm trying to find what my avenue of that is.
Yeah.
I have learned about myself that I can't do specifically horror that's directed to be scary to women, you
Yeah.
know? Like,
Well, you know what? I can do horror that's supposed to be scary for women if it's by a woman. Like, I don't know if you've seen
that's fair. Seen what?
the movie Barbarian.
Oh, no, I have not.
So that is a movie that is written and directed by a man. Very acclaimed. People really like it.
Hmm.
I didn't mind it. It's not a bad movie, but it's obviously not by a woman, and it's obviously not by a black woman. Like, the main
Hmm.
character is played by an actor that is white perceived or close to
Mm.
white perceived. Like, you can tell she's probably not white, but you don't know kind of like what, but she's a biracial black actor.
Mhm.
And I saw her as black the first time I saw her, right? The movie opened and I went, oh, a black girl. Okay, cool. Right.
Mhm.
And I started watching the movie. And the choices that she makes were clearly defined by a white man. Um,
Mm.
like, like just 5 seconds into the movie, you're like, if you know even one black lady, you're going to be like, no. But people aren't thinking about that, right? So if you
Mhm.
abandon that knowledge and just treat her like she's a woman of any ethnicity, like if you
Mhm.
treat her like she's a white woman, for example, you'll have a better time. But even
Mhm.
then, there's stuff that a woman wouldn't have done, right? It's clearly written by someone who has no understanding of what that person would have actually done in that situation.
Mhm.
So I feel like a lot of the people that really, really like that movie are people who are men or masculine, who are
That's fair.
alienated from the feminine experience. Um, it's still a good movie. Still solid plot line. Pacing is good. It's definitely scary. But I agree with you. It's hard for me to watch like horror that is about what it is to be like a woman unless the person
Mhm.
directing it is a woman. And even then, that's not even a guarantee that it's not going to be uncomfortable. So,
Yeah. So we're on episode 4. My very first note is making her play a baby is absolutely diabolical.
dude, you want to talk about fucking rising through the ranks and paying your dues and shit? This is like the worst paying of dues. She's like, can you just like put me back on the rats? Can I go back to doing the
Literally.
rats, please? I'd rather do the rats. Like, I'm good. Just put me down there with the rats. Everything will be
Mhm.
fine. I'll behave myself. And then when you have a real part for me, then you put me on stage. How about that? I also found it interesting that like there's a lot that they don't talk about on this show, and I think it's because they have time constraints and they know it,
Yeah.
but they like imply a lot of things, I think, for people who are like us that like want to do more analysis.
Mhm.
Having the only black vampire, right? You have other vampires of color in this
Mhm.
community. There's one black vampire and I think he's in the band, right?
Mhm.
Having the only black actor vampire in your entire like coterie be infantilized by two white women in front of a mostly white audience every night, like night after night
Mhm.
after night after night. Like, the infantilization is underscored by the race difference. right? By the racial
Mhm.
difference. And I feel like they don't say that, but when Claudia kind of talks to Armand, like, I don't know, the fact that they're both brown does something different for me than it
Yeah.
would if he were white or if she were white, right? Like, there's a different, there's like this underlying kind of pitch,
Mhm.
right, to their disagreement that they have. Like, they have disharmony between them. Like,
Mhm.
every scene that Armand and Claudia have together, you can tell that they have thinly veiled hatred for one another, pretty much, right?
Mhm.
like, like both of them are tolerating each other's presences for Louis. Like, that's very obvious in this new version that I think you don't really get in the movie, and you don't get any of in the book. Like, in the book, she just
Yeah.
bitches to Louis the whole time, right? Because she's only 5 and she's not supposed to be able to talk like that anyway, so she kind of just hides in the book. But I feel like in this show, aging her up has given her more agency so that she
Mhm.
can object, right? So you see her going through the motions. You see her trying to like live this life for Louis so that he can continue to have this relationship he refuses to acknowledge as real. And in exchange, she is infantilized as a black woman by these
Yeah.
white vampires who make fun of her and laugh at her behind her back. Like, her life is so brutal. And like, I don't mind that her life is brutal because, like, obviously that's part of who Claudia is. But at the same time, I'm just like, is she gonna get even one moment of happiness? Like, knowing what's coming for her, right? Knowing how her story ends. Can we give her just one episode where she's happy for
Yeah.
5 fucking minutes, please? Like,
Yeah.
I feel so
Plus,
bad.
like on top of that too is like while there's like all these other layers, it is
Mhm.
another like even on like a minor scale, it's something she's very insecure about
Yeah.
too. So I'm like
Yeah.
trying to like even relate it to like imagine your entire life and everything about you came down to one of your biggest insecurities and that's becomes what you're known for.
Yep.
Like I would end it all. I would go on a war rampage. The entire of Paris would be devoured. Like I'd be
Yep.
done.
Yep. Like, I also feel like the narrative too of the story that she's telling. Like, she's
Mhm.
telling a story about a young woman, like a kid, who
Mhm.
hates her life so much that she kills herself.
Yeah.
Like, that's the story she's telling, right? And it's the
Yeah.
story she's living. Like, I can't imagine like on top of what you're saying, right? Of like, oh, people are taking an insecurity that you have and they're like making you relive it every single day. It's
Mhm.
not it's like ups, it's like plussed up from
Yeah.
there. Because not only is she living her insecurity, she's living the fallout
Mhm.
of that insecurity as well, right? The literal fallout of that is like her being like, maybe I'll just step into the sun one morning. Like,
Yeah.
it's clear that she's like, is this all my life can be, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's clear she's feeling lost. It's clear she's feeling hopeless. Like, it's so brutal. And like, I feel like the other vampires see her suffering but don't care, you know?
Yeah.
Like, they just don't give a fuck.
It also feels like something where they're like trying to not like goad her, but like make her I don't know the exact word I'm looking for, but like more comfortable of the with the idea of like just kind of, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Like
Like, more comfortable with like just going through the motions and doing what she's told. Like, they're trying to break
yeah.
her down.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
I
like,
also
the
mean
other
like in the
vampires
way
hate her routine too. They all, like, make fun of it.
yeah.
They, like, do this, like, you know, stupid sing-songy impressions of her, like, within earshot and stuff. Like, the other vampires, like, cannot stand the routine. So, no one likes it except for the audience.
Yeah.
She hates it. They hate her for being in it a little bit, right?
Mhm.
And yet it continues.
Like I don't understand the purpose of like making her do this, you know? The like other like on the other hand, like if everybody hates it except the audience, I'm not understanding. It's not like they're hard up for cash.
Yeah.
So it's like why are we doing this?
It's punishment.
Yeah.
It's absolutely punishment. And, like, I feel like Armand, the punishment that Louis should be taking because of what he knows about him, I
Mhm.
feel like he's dishing it to Claudia instead.
That makes sense.
And I feel like that starts to, like, those cracks, I think, show a little bit in this
Mhm.
episode.
Yeah.
Like, she's sick of it. Like, so they show like 3 flashes of her performing it, right?
Mhm.
And the first flash is the first time where she's excited to be on stage. The second flash is like maybe 2 months in, it seems like. And then the
Yeah.
third flash feels like it's like 6 months in, right? So it's like the 300th time she's done it.
Yeah.
And it shows that decline of her, like every time she does it, she dies a little bit inside until she's finally just delivering her fucking um her lines and stuff, like monotone, like dead
Yeah.
behind the eyes, like, oh no, what am I to do?
Yeah. I
Oh,
just
so miserable.
I also don't understand. I'm like, how can people say the same thing over and over and over every single night to that level and not like I don't think tourism was popping at that point in
Mm-mm.
Paris. Like it probably was going okay, but like
Hmm.
it's also war for the
Yeah.
rest of the world. So I don't think you have enough of an influx of tourists where there's going to be people that have never seen this before. Like people have
Nope.
got to be getting bored.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I found so interesting is that Armand's argument is that the audience loves it. And then you
Mhm.
see the audience love it, right? They
Yeah.
show like that one scene of when she gets her like leg cut off or whatever, right? Like, and
Mhm.
there's blood everywhere. There's like people dressed up like the mom, right? Like,
Yeah.
or, like the vampire who plays her mom. There are
Mhm.
people dressed up like her in the front row. They bring like little umbrellas,
Yeah.
right? So that they don't get wet from like the blood. Like it turns into like Rocky Horror Picture Show, right? Like
Yeah.
it's now turned into like a cult following kind of thing, like a cult classic. And while that's awesome, if you ever read like an article or watch like an interview with someone who was in a cult classic, there are varying degrees of acceptance. Some people love that people adore their character that much and that they quote all those lines to them whenever they see them and all that stuff, right? But
Yeah.
some people are like, it defined my entire life. I never got out from under it, and now I can't book any more work. I'm just that, right? So like it's very much a double-edged sword to have fans like that because sometimes you get boxed in and you can't leave that
Yeah.
that time in your life. And that's kind of how it feels is happening to her. Like she's getting painted into a corner.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I saw an interview where Taylor Lautner said that happened to him.
Hmm.
Like, basically, he was like 16 and everyone wanted to have ripped abs all the time and like
Hmm.
be that hot guy. And he's like, oh, God.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you get all this positive feedback when you do it.
Hmm.
And that like spurs you to do it even if you don't want to because now you need that positivity, right? You need
Yeah.
that feedback. Um I don't know. Like I'm also disappointed with Louis because he's kind of looking on like this is what you wanted.
Yeah.
And it's like no one said that to you when your boyfriend dropped you from fucking 600 feet in the sky, right? Like
Literally.
like nobody came to you and was like, "Well, this is what you wanted." Right? Like
Yeah.
do better, man.
Like, literally, you turned her. You were like, decided you were going to take care of her forever. Like, you don't stop being a parent when your kid turns 18. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, when
No.
you're a vampire parent, you don't stop being a parent when your kid's 100.
No, you don't. That's always your fucking kid, man. And
Yeah.
you're always responsible for what your kid does, right? Like
Hmm.
it's not as though like if Lestat weren't dead, he'd definitely have gotten a phone call by now,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like someone would have definitely been like, "Come get your fucking kids." Right?
Yeah.
Like someone would have already said that. "We are sick of them. Come get your kids.
Literally.
We agreed to have them for 3 months. It's been 3 years. Come get your kid."
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. He's fucking up, man. Like he's fucking up. And like I know that's like the understatement of the year, but he is fucking up.
I don't know anything about Magnus, but I'm now imagining like a Christmas reunion where everybody that's like Magnus sired coming home for Christmas, and it's just a disaster of like 500 vampires.
Yep. Yep. Just a fucking mess.
Yeah.
Yes. Um yeah, I think that well, I wonder, and I think I said this before, like I wonder if the snippets that we're getting of Armand's backstory come from the Vampire Armand book. Because there's a whole book about Armand. He has his own book about like where he comes from, his life. And I know when Lestat meets Armand, there's also in the Vampire Lestat, there's also like or it's either the Vampire Lestat or the book right after. There is a little conversation about Magnus and Marius, um, and like the complexities between those two characters and those two figures. Um, so I feel like we do get more insight. I just can't remember when it happens. Um, Man, Armand telling his backstory.
Oh, I
That was a
know.
beautiful scene.
Yeah. I had to write that down because I was like, that's gonna be like a Christmas special book I write one day is a bunch of vampires coming home to their sire for Christmas. And they're like gothic castle, and you're like, all right, grandpa. Like it's just like this vampire that's like 10,000 years old, just like on a throne, and he's like decaying rapidly.
Armand is something else though, man. Like I don't even know what to do with him and Louis. Like I don't even know what to do with him and Louis, man. Fucking
Yeah.
somebody's like, "Are you guys companions?" Armand's like, "Yeah." Louis like, "No." At the same time. At the same
Hmm.
time these two men open their mouths and
Yep.
Armand like looks crushed. Like if you want
Uh-huh.
gay drama, this show is all you need. You don't need anything but this show. Fucking literally they answer at the same time and Armand is like, "Ugh." When Louis like, "Nah. We're not
Yeah.
companions. We're just friends." Armand's like, "What is this if we're not companions?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Are you guys seriously having the talk right now? Are you
So
having the talk
funny.
right now?
What are
You are
we?
vampires. You have the rest of your lives. You're having it right now in front of these people?"
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay,
So
guys.
funny. Oh, speaking of Armand and Louis being dramatic though. So then Daniel like pulls back after we talk about Claudia having this entire experience. And um Daniel's like, "How did Claudia feel about all of this?" And Armand and Louis like, "Well, and then Armand's like, "We won't talk about that."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Sir?
Mm-hmm.
What?"
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing though. Like, right after that, Armand finds out about Louis' visions.
Mhm.
Right? Like in that same conversation, like Armand's like, "Anyway, let's change subject. We don't need to talk about it." And then they like move into like talking about like Louis' visions of Lestat and how much Lestat was talking to him and how like he was dogging him every fucking day and like it was really hard and he's like going in on like what's going on with him and what was happening at that time. And then the camera pans to Armand and he's looking like this is the first time he's ever heard this fucking information. He's like,
Yeah.
"Well, I didn't know it was such a problem." I'm like, "Fuck, dude. This is like 100 years ago. You're
Mhm.
just finding out that your man was that disappointed while you guys were together. Like,
Oh,
fuck. Ugh. God. Oh, it was rough. It was rough.
so much
It was
drama
rough.
on
Oh
this
my
one.
god. Oh, and then you can tell that Armand is pissed that he's finding out in front of Daniel because Daniel is the one
Mhm.
who's asking Louis about it, and Louis is like, "Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Daniel." And
Yep.
Armand is like, "Excuse?" Like, especially because we know from last season that
Mhm.
when Armand and Daniel, I mean, when Louis and Daniel met, Armand was there and like left
Mhm.
them to their own devices. But I think that there is a very sexual undertone
Oh, yeah.
between like 1979 Louis and Daniel. Like, I don't think that things went the way the audience assumes that they did, where they just ended. They like never really talk about like how that interview ended,
Mhm.
and I feel like this episode kind of starts opening that door a little bit.
I think it was also, like, heavily implied that they were gonna do the interview, but they were probably also gonna bang,
Mm.
you know?
Mhm. Mhm. That's what I'm saying. So like Armand knowing that, right?
Mhm.
Now has this man, 40 years later in his house, in his home with his partner, and his
Mhm.
partner is just giving up goods that he's been sitting on for 100 years, right? Loose lipping to this
Oh my
other
god.
boy, right?
Yeah.
In front of him. And he's just like, mm. And then all of a sudden Daniel starts getting like really shitty visions.
Yep.
Fuck, dude.
Mhm.
Yo, like literally putting Daniel through psychic damage. Like Daniel starts getting all these flashes of Armand calling out a situation that he was in
Mhm.
that was horrible, right? That,
Mhm.
oh, there was a girl one time when you were, a young man that you wanted to have sex with, and you told her, yeah, just put a paper bag over her head, right? Like,
Mhm.
you need to put a paper bag over your head. And she was into it. And she tried it, and you felt bad after, and you cried. Like, he's like calling out one of the
Yeah.
worst, like, it sounds like one of the worst situations that Daniel's ever been in, that he's ever
Mhm.
done, like one of the worst things he's ever done. And Armand just like starts like putting through these flashes of memory,
Mhm.
but like they're not clear what the memory is. Like you
Yeah.
see Armand's face and then you see like the face of someone with a plastic bag over their head, but they look masculine. I
Mhm.
love the way this show plays with memory. Like
Me too.
the concept of memory for a vampire, like what must that be like? Because like there's only so much space your brain has, right? Does that
Mhm.
change when you're a vampire? Do you access the rest of your brain and you have room for like hundreds of years of memories, or is there I mean there's got to be some shit that you forget.
Yeah.
Bananas.
Crazy. I know. They're
Bananas.
doing like a really good job, and I can't wait to find out like, are these flashes happening in real time, or is Armand unlocking memories for Daniel of when he like previously tortured him in the 70s, you know?
That's what I am curious about. Because I feel like the reason that these memories are being unlocked is because because it only happens when Daniel asks questions that Armand doesn't want Daniel to know the answers to, right? Like
Mhm.
that's how it seems throughout this whole episode, because they start with the Claudia stuff and then there's a pivot, right? Oh, we
Mhm.
don't have to talk about that anyway. And then Louis like, okay. And then he goes back into his story and Armand's like, flash, flash, flash to
Mhm.
Daniel on the side, right? And you know that Louis doesn't know this is happening to Daniel. He's really
Yeah.
struggling. He's like blinking a lot. He's like looking around. Like it feels almost like dementia, right?
Mhm.
Where he's like unsure. He's like trying to go through his computer to also like look at what the Talamasca has put there while like talking to these two.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like he's doing this because Daniel is getting too close to the secret that he's hiding. So I think
Mhm.
you're onto something. I think that he is giving flashbacks of things that maybe like he was told to forget back then.
Yeah.
Like those memories might already exist, like you're saying. He's just unlocking them and opening them,
Mhm.
which like diabolical.
It's crazy. I can't wait to see as this like show keeps progressing cuz I mean, I think we're only scratching the surface of this story and I
Yep.
like that it's popular enough that it's not going to get canceled. You know what I mean?
Same. Because I need more.
Yeah, cuz I heard that was it Kronos or Chaos or something like that
Mm-hmm.
that people were loving and it got canceled by
Okay.
Netflix. Chaos. Yeah,
Let me
I
text
was
you.
going to start it and then I found out it got canceled and I was like I can't start it cuz if I like it I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah, and you will like it. It's great. It's
Yeah.
excellent. Eventually, when the shit has died down, I would recommend watching it because you love Greco-Roman mythology.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's so good. If you like Grecian mythology, it
I really
is
do.
you'll have no notes, honestly.
Yeah. I know I'm gonna
So
love it, and then I'm just gonna
yeah,
be angry that it got canceled.
I'm fuming. You have no idea. They didn't even give it a chance. Like they didn't even give it a chance. I couldn't watch it when it first came out, so it took me like 2 or 3 months to get to it. And but the
Mhm.
day that I finished it was the day they canceled it. Yep, bullshit.
So annoying.
Yep. But I'm thrilled that they're already like doing production on the next season of this. Like, this isn't going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, thank God.
There are a lot of people who have AMC subscriptions right now just so they can watch that show. So,
Literally, like my dad still has an AMC subscription
hmm
for unknown reasons, probably for Yellowstone or something. I'm
hmm
guessing that's on there. Um, so I was like, oh, thank God, so I can watch this. So, um, oh, and then we get to the point where Claudia says to the rest of the cast, she's like, listen, I can't keep doing this. Like, I need something else. Put me back with the rats, whatever. I don't care. Like, this is killing me. Like, and then Armand punishes her by saying she has to wear the costume all the time,
hmm
forever, until she remembers how to love her role. I'm like, bro.
hmm And Santiago is a homie
Hmm.
and steps up and is like, "What are you doing about the person that's not following the rules? Claudia comes in here every day and does what she's supposed to do, and you're carrying on with this other fucking person.
Hmm.
What's that about?" And Armand's just like, why are you questioning me? Right? Like ruling with an iron fist, which is not how
Yeah.
anybody, like he's reverting back to the Armand that he was before Lestat, right? Like that's how he
Hmm.
treated his like, we're living in squalor in a ruined church
Cronies.
club, right? That's
Yeah.
that's how he was fucking that's how he was um making, like his life before, and it feels like he's kind of returning to that now.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't know. Something that I am enjoying about this, even though once again we know for the most part how this story is going to end for Claudia
Hmm.
because they keep giving us more little bits. that are going to lead to her untimely death, right?
Yeah.
I love the Santiago and Claudia relationship.
Me too.
Like, I love it. They're
It's
so
so
good
fun.
together. Like, he goes to comfort her, right? Like, he sticks up for her in this scene with Armand, and Armand's just like, stop questioning me. And then the next scene, Claudia's like downstairs or whatever, and she's just like, yo, I'm sorry. I know you stuck up for me today, but like, I'm serious. I don't think I can keep doing this. Like, I
Mhm.
can't. And they're like by the rat boxes. And he finds out that she's breaking a rule and tells her, I know you're breaking a rule. Like, he still sticks
Mhm.
up for her, but then he comes to her and he's like, you write our history. She's like, I'm
Yeah.
not writing history. It's just dumb scribbles. It's just like what happens in my life. Nobody cares about me.
Mhm.
And he's like, that's still writing down vampire lore, right? That's still writing down what we
Yeah.
do. And you shouldn't be doing that. But also, what's in your diary, girl? Like, let's
Yeah.
talk, right? Like, let's kiki for a second. And Claudia's like, okay, fine. I mean, I say a lot of nice things about you. And he like
And
grabs it and reads it in like a second, right? I don't know if he's lying to her in that scene
mhm.
and just like jokes that he knows that she wrote like a bunch of nice stuff about him, or if he's saying that super speed is one of his other powers, because we know that Santiago already has certain powers from his maker, right?
Mhm.
And she said her power is lying, but in this scene we know she's not lying to him.
Yeah.
So he says, oh well, I read it just now in front of you, didn't even notice. And it's like, okay, so are you saying you have super speed, or are you just kidding?
Yeah.
Because we don't know what powers all the vampires have unless they admit to them.
Mhm.
And he seems like the vampire that is the most advanced out of everybody else in the coterie, right?
Mhm.
Everybody else seems kind of more mundane, like they drink blood and they're talented and they live, they have immortality, but they don't all seem like they have powers and special gifts, that they have like he does. And like, I don't know, it feels like they are implicating Armand even more by
Mhm.
having Claudia and Santiago be friends.
Yeah.
Because in the book, the whole thing is blamed on Santiago, right? It's easy to be like, it wasn't Armand. It was these terrible vampires. They hate Louis. They hate Claudia. They just killed
Mhm.
her because they like Lestat or because they have rigid rules that they stick to, right? Like, it's very black and white in the book and kind of in the movie. But
Mhm.
here, I feel like they are painting in nothing but gray when it comes to Claudia and Santiago's relationship, when it comes to Louis and Armand's relationship. Like, there's so much gray area here.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Like, I really, really hope that things can change, even though I know they can't.
I know.
Because I love them together. Like, I love them.
Me too. Like, I
I
just want
didn't
her to
think I
get
would
out of
like him
there.
that much.
I know.
Like, I like him less still, I think, as Santiago, but I like him more than expected.
Fair. Fair. Yeah, I want to be like, get out of there, girl. Get out of there, bestie.
You're in trouble.
Literally, I'm like, run. Like, maybe it's just me who's like not great with human interaction, but like the idea of having to hang out with like the same group all the time, I'm like, ugh,
No.
couldn't do it. Like, I have to
So much
force
stress.
myself once a week to go have human interaction, you know?
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine.
Yeah, me either. Like, you have to hang out with the same group all the time and they barely like you.
It's almost
It's
like high
bad when
school.
it's just your best friends, right? When it's
Mhm.
people that you fucking, like, cannot, like, imagine your life without. You need breaks from them. But people that
Yeah.
you're just like, I barely know you, and what you know about me and what I know about you means that we hate each other. Oh, I love being with you every day. This is great.
Yeah. It's like I watched a lot of those videos of like girls who have their best friend that like they basically are always attached to the hip. They do everything together, like those level of friends. And I'm like, I don't have a friend like that, you know? Like, and I
Hmm.
can't imagine having a friend like that that's like always down, like does like has every same interest as you. Like, I have a lot of friends who all have different interests, you know?
Hmm.
So it's like you have that friend you go to when you want to discuss books. You have that friend you go to with like TTRPGs, video games, like that kind of stuff. Like, you know,
Hmm.
like I feel like I don't have a friend that's like a clone of me. And I don't think I could hang out with a friend that's a clone of me. Like, if we had
Mm-mm.
every of the same hobby, I think I would be annoyed.
Agree.
Like I don't know. It's like I've never understood someone that has that. Maybe there's like a friends that one day I will be attached to the hip with, and like maybe I'll have a different opinion. I just can't imagine hanging out with someone that much. So the idea of like hanging out with a room full of people that much all the time gives me
Mm-hmm.
hives.
Yeah, I feel that.
Like, how do you have diverse experiences that you can talk to someone about and talk to your friends about when you do every single thing together and every waking moment together?
Mm-mm.
What do you like at that point? Do you just like sit in quiet rooms all the time?
Yeah, comfortable silences. That's what you
Yeah,
deal in now.
I can't imagine. I don't know. Because I'm like, you guys need other friends. Like, you guys need a hobby. You need some other people to hang out with.
Definitely.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I like it sounds like a lonely life.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What's that saying where it's like you're surrounded by people, but you're still alone?
That's definitely like that's the shirt that Claudia buys from Hot Topic.
Yes. It's her first tattoo, honestly.
Yep. Yep.
Do you think they have to get tattoos of like holy water?
Honestly, I don't think so. In the lore that I've read,
Mhm.
vampires, if you don't have the tattoos when you die, you can't get them because your body just
Mhm.
heals overnight. So everything is just temporary. Some
That's crazy.
folklore is like after you feed, you go back to normal.
Mm.
Yeah. Like
I'd be
even
like,
your
hold
hair
on. I know
supposedly
you want
grows
to
out.
change me, but like, I have a couple things I have to do first, actually. Like, let me hit my weight
Oh.
loss goal. Let me, like, do you, like, can you still get buff after you get turned to a vampire? Or do I have to do that first? You know?
I feel like you have to do that first.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
but like, I mean, you'll have super vampire strength even if you're a beanpole after. So
I know, but I want, like, want a nice butt. I want good muscles. Like, I'd be like, okay, hold on. Can you like change me in a year? And then I can do like I'm gonna have a very serious like fitness regimen.
just
Like
in
I've
case,
yeah, I have
just in case
goals
a
here.
vampire comes.
Yeah. And like I have to wait for my skin to clear real quick before I get turned to a vampire. So I have acne and then I'm a vampire and I have acne forever. Lose my mind.
See, so that I'll say that would change by Anne Rice's rules because when you become a vampire, it heals you and it
Okay.
makes you like it like plumps you up and makes you look like fancy. Like remember the
Perfect.
scene where Claudia gets turned
Hmm.
in like that hovel that she
Yeah.
grows up in, and she goes from being like a filthy, disgusting looking orphan in the book and in the movie as well to
Mhm.
being like a porcelain doll. But like in the movie, they show Kirsten Dunst's hair kind of lightening a little bit and her
Mhm.
curls kind of coming back and her cheeks kind of filling out where she was kind of gaunt before. So I feel like that's what happens when you become a vampire. Like that soft focus filter
Mhm.
that goes over you when you become a vampire. So you'll be
Okay.
okay if you have a breakout. All your acne will be gone.
Let me
But
get a nice tan first.
if you want like fucking slamming delts or some shit, right? You want like
Yeah.
good glutes, then you're gonna have to do that work beforehand. Because all it's gonna do is just polish you
Yeah.
up. See, for
Okay.
me, what I'd be worried about, because I'm thick, what I'd be worried about is like getting turned into a vampire on one of the weeks that my boobs aren't great. Like one of the weeks, because like sometimes your boobs are like
Mhm.
fantastic, right? And they're like
Yeah.
boobing, and you're like, look at this, woo,
Mhm.
blessed. Hashtag blessed today. I'd be worried that it was like a week where I was like bloated, my boobs weren't great, and that's when I get turned into a vampire.
Yes. You're like, let me
You
check
come back
my
in like
bloating.
3 to 7 days.
You're like, cool, I love that I'm immortal forever. However,
Listen, I'm not gonna bleed to death on my period. Just come back the day after I stop. That's all I need from you. Okay, give me like 2 days of cushioning, and then I'll be ready to go. I'll look my best.
yeah, I'm just imagining you're like, like when people do like pre-wedding diets and stuff like that, it's like pre-vampire diets become a fad.
Mm.
You're like, sorry, I need to hit my optimal. Like, Give me a second. Like, what? It's like the whole study of like, there's like a whole branch of like vampires, and it's like the transition period. You're like, what does get better and what stays exactly the same?
That would be a really funny meme. Like a fledgling vampire sitting in front of a computer screen, like Googling, how long will a tattoo last?
Mm-hmm.
What time do I actually have to be back in my coffin? How long can I stay out in twilight? Are you sure I can't tell people that I'm a vampire? What happens if you fall in love with a human? Like, just the search history.
Yeah. I'm imagining like some sort of 13 like esque magazine for vampires.
Yes. So you were almost staked. Now what? That sucking wound is going to take some time to heal. You might want to eat some people.
The scarves to get your fledgling. Like today's fashion trends for your current victims.
Yes. How to blend in 2024. Step 1,
Contouring
don't
methods
have a
for
side part. 2, skinny jeans? No.
keeping up with the times. So you look like a Gen Z.
Yeah, like, so that's something that I really loved about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because that is absolutely a conversation that happens in that show.
Mhm.
Where she meets these vampires and they're like, how do you know we're vampires? She's like, you look like Chico and DeBarge, and I only know who that is because my mom has their albums in her house. Like, just totally like reads these dudes for filth, and they're
Yeah.
standing there like, this is cool. Just sleeves are super cool. Pointy collar shirt, super cool. She's like, yeah, okay. And then dusts them.
Yep. So good. So good. I
uh,
love Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Same. So good.
However, every time I see that girl that played Willow, I'm like, hmm.
She went through a transformation.
Like I know you. You know what I mean?
I was there before you were cool, okay? I know who
Literally.
you are.
Pre How I Met Your Mother, you know?
Yep. Yep. That's funny though. Like, speaking of fucking I knew you before you were cool, I feel like that's the entire fight between Santiago and Armand at dinner.
Yes.
Like, that is the essence of that fight.
Mm-hmm.
They like go into this fucking restaurant and they don't tell you whether or not the restaurant is vampire friendly. You assume it is because
Mm-hmm.
nobody's staring at them, but also, is it vampire friendly or is it that everybody knows their troop and that's why no one's staring at them?
Yeah.
Louis at one end of the table with Claudia, and he's like holding court for a party of one. And he's
Mm-hmm.
telling her all about this fancy art show he went to and how the gallery looked and how he had one piece hanging and how
Mm-hmm.
he met an art collector or like an art dealer or whatever, a critic. And he has a meeting and blah, blah, blah. And he's like giving her all this information. And like the other vampires are at the table kind of just chit chatting and stuff. On the other end of the table is Santiago talking to his girlfriend of the month,
Mm-hmm.
and he's watching Louis and he's like listening to him just prattle on until eventually he opens his mouth and starts talking at the same time as Louis. At first it feels like he's just kind of echoing Louis
Mm-hmm.
until it gets quicker and quicker and quicker, and then finally he's saying things as the words are coming out of Louis's mouth until it escalates one last time, and then he's saying things right before Louis says them.
Just crazy.
Like, totally fucking crazy, right? So then Louis stops talking, and you hear Santiago talking, and he's talking like Louis in his accent and everything. And then
Mm-hmm.
after he finishes, looks this man dead in his face and goes, as an actor, I pride myself on knowing accents. That doesn't sound like where you're from. That
Mm-hmm.
sounds actually kind of French. Why would you have a French origin in your accent? This other word you
Mm-hmm.
used, yeah, that sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like maybe an American deviation on French. Why don't you go ahead and say New Orleans for me? Maybe I'll figure out where you're from. I'm like, ah,
I know. I
oh
screamed.
no, ah. It's so horrible. And both of them are just getting like angrier and angrier.
Mhm.
And like you can feel the tension rising in the room. Like both the humans and the vampires and kind, like everybody is like like it's
Mhm.
a bad moment until Daddy Armand like snaps his fingers to like get everybody in line. I am a person who really likes when other people get in trouble. I
Mhm.
admit it. It's something that brings me endless joy and delight. If I'm in a grocery store and there's a kid screaming, and then 5 seconds later I hear crying and sniveling because they got yelled at in front of everyone, that
Mhm.
is my bread and butter. Yell at your children in public. More people do it, please, because these
Yeah.
children, they need to be wrangled. I don't care how old your child is, whether they are
Mhm.
2 or 200. Wrangle your fucking kids, right?
Mhm.
And that's exactly what Armand does. Armand does the equivalent of your mom clandestinely pinching you in the mall so nobody knows that you've been pinched until you're standing there screaming by yourself. Yes,
Mhm.
I do speak from experience.
Mhm. Mhm.
When you're fucking up and your parent is like, I'm gonna leave you here because you're embarrassing me too much.
Yep.
Find me if you want. And it's just gone, right? In a store. Or like threatens you with an ass whooping or something, right? It's that. It's the equivalent of that, but vampires and grown ass men.
Yep. Or when
Really?
Louis like darts over there and grabs Santiago's
Oh
tongue
my god.
too.
Ah!
Ugh.
Oh my god. Like I almost stood up from the couch. I was like, "Oh no!" You go in a panic mood. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Oh.
I was just happy that Louis finally like I'm not anybody's bitch anymore.
Mm,
Like first moment of him being like I will stand up for myself. Like I don't need you. I don't
yes.
need to be here. I'm doing this as a favor to my kind of boyfriend, but like
Yep.
I'll leave. And then he
Yep.
leaves. And I think that was a beautiful moment because it was the first time that Louis was like, I why am I here? What am I
Mhm.
doing? Like I literally did this because Armand told me he wants me to bond with the troop.
Yep.
Armand's letting this happen. Fuck it, I'm out.
Yep. But it's like a wonderful moment of like individualism and like self-sustaining kind of like confidence,
Mhm.
but also that puts Claudia on the outside.
Yeah.
Like he's thinking of himself and defending
Yeah.
himself. Like even in the understanding of they both killed Lestat, right? It was mostly
Mhm.
her, but they both killed Lestat, right? They are quite literally in this together, and he keeps leaving her behind.
Yeah.
Like he's keeping all these secrets from her. Like it's a bad situation. Very bad scene.
Yeah. And like he also is not realizing that if they figure out that he's from New Orleans, that means they can also figure out that Claudia's from New Orleans.
Right. Like he's living his life like he's a single person
Yeah.
who also has a kid, but like
Yeah.
he and his child are handcuffed together.
Very divorced dad core.
Yes. 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 That's exactly what I feel.
I
And
also
like
for
she's sick of it. That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
I feel so bad for this Claudia. Like she has no one, man. Like she has no one and nothing.
Mhm.
Like it's really, really hard and really, really sad. And I feel like part of the reason that like the way that they've aged her up makes so much sense is because when Claudia is only 5, right, it's harder to understand how she feels with Louis because you're like,
Mhm.
that's a 5-year-old, you can't leave her alone. But it's
Yeah.
easy to see now how like Claudia gets kind of thrown to the wayside, how she gets tossed aside all the time, you know?
Mhm.
It's really, really sad. Like her character is so tragic, but the actor does a fantastic job portraying like a little bit of hope and like the little scraps of pleasure that she's trying to seek for herself.
Yeah. I'm actually very glad they aged her up.
Yeah, me too. It's such a more interesting story, a more well-rounded story.
Mhm. I also forgot to include this note from when we were talking about uh Louis seeing Lestat all the time and Armand being like, "Oh my god." Daniel like pulls us back and he's like, "Be real honest with me, Louis. Are you schizophrenic actually?" Which kind of just makes me laugh and it's just a note I had to include because it's like nobody like that's not normal. And Louis acts like it's normal and it's something that everybody goes through. I'm like, dude, it's not normal and it's not really okay.
Yeah.
Like, are we gonna address that or not really?
Nah.
Oh, so then we also had this moment where after the whole, like, after the entire, like, Santiago moment and him grabbing his tongue, they start going through all of Louis' photos that he took during this time period. Louis has like a whole stack. And he's like, yeah, I wasn't that great of an artist, but obviously, and we had this flash to this moment where he's talking to this art dealer and like screams at him for not realizing his potential. He's like, yeah, that was kind of embarrassing. Um, but he's like, yeah, my art really wasn't like my photography was not that great. And Daniel's like, oh, really? Like this one, he's like, well, a lot of these are very amateur, very early works, but this one was really good. And he holds it up, and Louis is like, yeah, that's not my photo.
It's good because it's like a professional photographer that is world renowned.
Yeah. And he's like,
And like
why is.
he has the eye, so he
Mm-hmm.
immediately recognizes that it's someone else's work. He immediately knows whose work it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
Armand's like, who could have done that? I'm like, you piece of shit. It
Yeah.
was you bastard. We know
Mm-hmm.
it was you. We
Mm-hmm.
know it, right? And then they like flash back to Louis talking to the art critic, like the art buyer or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
the guy's just like chatting with him. That guy was actually really nice to Louis. He was
Yeah.
like, yeah. He's like, Louis is like, are you saying I don't have the eye? Because the guy shows him some other work that's really beautiful and transformative, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
taken, from the shadows inside of a house, but it's like outside, right? Like it's like a boy going outside to play, but he's missing a leg. Clearly, he's gotten into an accident. He can no longer play. And there's like a mother across the way with her daughter looking back
Mm-hmm.
at this child in the doorway. And it's a gorgeous picture. And he's like, and Louis is like, well, are you saying that this person has the eye and I don't? And the guy's like, no, you definitely have the eye. Like, I have the eye. We know it when we see it, but these people can do it.
Yeah.
And Louis like gets infuriated. And I'm like, okay, so then this is just more of an indication that Armand has stayed telling Louis what he wants to hear for 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Just told him whatever he wanted to hear for like 80 years that they've been together at this point. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's not the first time.
Mm-hmm.
How many other pictures were stolen? Because Armand has access to talented people and creative people. It's not like he
Yeah.
doesn't have the eye, right? Not only does he find that one picture is by somebody that's a prolific and prominent artist, but there's like a bunch in there,
Yeah.
right? He holds up like 4 or 5 pictures that are from other famous photographers
Mm-hmm.
and is like, none of these are mine.
Yeah. And the other thing is just like, you have to also assume that Armand is trying to make Louis seem like not credible. Because obviously, Daniel, as a good journalist, would like look at these photos, maybe reverse image search, realize that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, these are not Louis' photos and he's trying to pass them off as his own, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can only assume that that is the direction. So he wants Louis to seem not reliable as a storyteller, which it's like, why would he want that? Probably because Armand is trying to make it so that whenever secrets come out about Armand, Louis cannot be relied upon.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. The levels of like layers to
Mm-hmm.
like Armand's involvement in Louis's life is insane.
Yeah, this is very much it's wild how this show manages to straddle the line between deeply obsessive in a
Mm-hmm.
positive way, like long lasting, epic, life altering love,
Mm-hmm.
especially gay queer love, right? And horrible toxicity and abusive relationships.
Yeah.
And I like that there's a clear understanding that what's toxic isn't that they're two men, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's toxic is the way that they are using vampirism, right?
Yeah.
It's really what they are rather than who they are that is the toxic part, right? Like Armand has untold power. We don't know what he can and cannot do, right? There are some things we know for sure he absolutely can do, but we don't know what cards he's holding in his hand as far as what he is actually capable of outside of what he has revealed. And again, what he's chosen to reveal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's way older than Louis. There's a lot that Louis probably doesn't even know about him. We know there's something big that Louis doesn't know about him, right? We know that
Mhm.
he's great at hiding things and like fucking keeping secrets. Claudia doesn't know what he knows about her, for example, right? If we want to talk about what the audience doesn't and does know about Armand, neither does Claudia, right? We're in the same boat. Whereas all we know about Armand is what he said. So she knows even less than the audience, technically, because we're at least there when he and Louis have conversations, and we know
Yeah.
him because of the future, right? So you find this person that is like toxic as fuck, but can hide in plain sight with
Mhm.
these really awful traits that he has, right? And like, what does that look like for somebody who is long lived? What does that look like for somebody for whom there is no end, right? Like, all of us are on some kind of timeline to try and make sure that like we can make good changes before we one day like bite it, right? Like, all
Yeah.
of us are out here going, I hope I can, do something prolific before I'm dead. These guys have
Mhm.
nothing but time. Nothing but time to grow and learn and be better.
Yeah.
But that's not how he's using his time, Armand. He's using his time to control and make his life what he wants it to be.
Mhm.
I feel like that's the lesson he took from Lestat, is make life what you want it to be, rather than here is a way to be better so that we can all be better. Like, Armand doesn't feel like a leader in practice, rather a leader because he takes power from people. And like, I don't want to skip ahead because we haven't gotten there yet, but when he talks about his past, I can see why Armand wants to take power, because he's had
Mhm.
power taken from him, right?
Yeah.
So I see the pathology. I see why he is the way that he is. But like, the lengths that he goes through to like dissemble in front of Louis and build an entire life based on falsehoods and mistruths is wild. Like, it's
Crazy.
wild. Like, he goes back in that scene, like right after that scene, to fuck more with Daniel's mind, because he knows that Daniel is going to be able to figure that out, right? Daniel is smart enough, like you said, to be able to reverse Google search, right? He could have found it out regardless, right? Thankfully, Louis called it out and was able to have that conversation. But like, Armand keeps Daniel from asking Louis more questions about it. And Louis looking at him like, aren't you going to call me out? Right? Like, Louis, like Louis, I feel like Louis comes correct because he himself is horrified, but also because he's, like you said, he's worried that Daniel is going to be like weird about it, right? He's worried that Daniel's
Mhm.
going to think he's trying to pass this off as his own work, right? And that he's a fraud.
Yeah.
But Daniel doesn't even put up that much of a fight because he's going through those flashbacks because Armand is like inundating him with them.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so this is like an abusive relationship, like a human abusive relationship,
Mhm.
except there are two people being abused. One person is being abused by having secrets like made with them in concert. And then this other person as an outsider, and they're being abused because he can physically change that person's ability to save person A
Mhm.
and to confront person A about like what's happening in his life. Like, so many layers, man, so many layers. And like, I what's interesting too is how Louis Lestat has started to change as Louis has grown a backbone,
Mhm.
right? Like, that voice, that version of Lestat that keeps coming up with him,
Mhm.
he gets stronger, right? That scene right after the art thing happens, when Louis is talking to Lestat about the art critic himself. Yo, you should have seen the other stuff. And what, should I just like stop doing this? Am I bad? Lestat is like, no, like, you have the soul of a poet, right? He's like saying all this beautiful stuff to Louis. And like
Mhm.
before, Lestat was saying like pretty things, but shitty things to Louis, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're dark. You know that you're not good. You know this, right? Because obviously he's talking to himself. That
Mhm.
Lestat is himself. So as Lestat starts getting more positive, I'm like, okay, so is Armand's hold on Louis weakening, right?
Yeah.
Because this Lestat character is starting to actually be sweet to him. Like, I love how he's like still ride or die while Louis is complaining about like the injustice, right? He's like, can you believe it? Lestat's like, no, never. Right? Like, just like in
Yeah.
his corner, right? Like, so cute. But then like the moment that like he's getting that validation from Lestat and they're having this really positive discussion together,
Mhm.
Armand invades his thoughts.
Mhm.
He doesn't call to him in a normal way. He doesn't knock on the door. Suddenly, like, he's talking to Lestat out loud, and in his mind, he hears Armand reciting Romeo and Juliet. And Lestat's like
Yeah.
Romeo and Juliet, honestly, seriously. So that's technically a Louis thought.
Hmm.
He's like, somebody loves me, brushes it away, and goes to the window.
Yep.
And I'm like, puppy, grow up. Puppy, grow up.
Yeah.
This is the rest of your life we're talking about, okay? Oh, oh, God.
I know. It's ugh. The more you dissect it, the more you're like, oh.
And then Claudia's just like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm gonna go see my friend again.
Yep.
Go see my friend. She has a Nazi symbol painted on her the window of her shop. I actually
Mhm.
thought that was going to be because there was some Nazi presence in Paris.
Yeah.
So I thought that was because she was Jewish. And I was like, "Oh, are they going to tell the story about how like blacks and Jews in the 1940s especially, but like from the mid to late 1800s all the way up until like the 50s, 60s and 70s, like black people and Jewish people have a very storied past together because we were seen as like animals by everyone pretty much. So for a long time, like waspy people who lived in America wouldn't buy from Jewish shops, so black people would buy there, right?
Hmm.
Because they didn't want to buy, like they those same people wouldn't sell to black people, right? So black people had to kind of go to Jewish stores. And if you look at like Bernie Sanders, right, and Howard Zinn, some of like the biggest theorists of the time, I think we talked about this during Kindred a little bit.
Hmm.
A lot of the people that are like our leading socialist thinkers, right, that are Jewish, taught at like Spelman College, which is a black women's college, right? It's an HBCU. Um, or taught at Morehouse or something like that, right? Like a lot of Jewish people, like Jewish professors, taught at black colleges. So I thought that was the story that they were going to try to tell, right? That like Claudia and Madeline have an understanding because they're both kind of outcasts in this world.
Hmm.
But then they tell a story of how Madeline is actually French, but she comforted a soldier from Dusseldorf, which is in Germany, right?
Hmm.
So she comforted a German soldier. She took him to bed one night like a young boy that was frightened and sent him off to, like fight another day, feeling more strong because he was able to like find comfort in the arms of a woman. And
Hmm.
that's why the swastika is there, because people assume that she is one of them.
I thought she said she banged Hitler
No, she
specifically.
really?
That's what I thought she said.
Maybe I missed it. Oh my God. That's
That's what
worse.
I thought happened, but I could be wrong because
She said she thought she was just banging a scared soldier, and then it turns
I
out that he was a Nazi.
okay, let's Google it because I thought she specifically said banging Hitler, but I didn't have subtitles on when I was watching that part. Let me see. Oh, we forgot to mention the part too where Madeline went and watched her at the show too.
Oh, that's right, she did. That's why Claudia goes to see her, because she goes to the show. Because I think she sees, that's what it is. Claudia passes her store with the
Mhm.
sandwich board on for the show, advertising the show in her outfit, in her costume. And Madeline runs into her on the street, and she's like, "What are you wearing? Like, the last time you came to my shop, like you were just a child." And Claudia's like, "Oh no, I mean, like I've always looked really young." And Madeline's like, "That was like almost 2 years ago." And Claudia's
Mhm.
like, "Whatever, no big deal. I just,
Yeah.
I'm old. I'm older than you think." And
Okay.
Madeline's like, "Okay, sure."
Here's where I got confused. So basically, you were right. She did just bang a 19-year-old lieutenant. But when she said, here's specifically the line she said: I wasn't inviting Hitler to stay in France. I was inviting a frightened boy to cradle my tits. Now I'm a traitor, a slut.
Hmm.
I thought she was saying that the 19-year-old was Hitler. And I was
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's crazy.
No,
Okay.
that would have had to have been in like 1920 in order for Hitler to be a teenager at that time, I think, or like
Okay, that makes sense.
1915 or something like that. I can see why you would have gotten confused, though. That's a very confusing sentence.
Yeah.
I have no sympathy for Madeline. Like, I feel like that
No.
made her less likable to me. No offense.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of empathy there. I was just kind of like, okay, well, I mean, you fucked a German soldier. I don't know what you thought was going to happen. It's World War II, dude, right?
Yeah. Also,
I
like,
don't know.
there's the era where people do not like unmarried people banging. So that doesn't help
That
your case either.
I mean, there's the slut part, right? And I'm not saying that that's right. I'm just saying
Yeah.
for the time, we are unsurprised.
Yeah.
If you told me that today you're a slut because you banged a soldier from a foreign country, then I'd be like, yeah, that you got a raw deal. But 1940s, I'm sorry, honey. That's
There's
just how it
other
is.
options, you know?
Sometimes it bees like that, I don't know.
Okay, that makes more sense because I was like, she's just calmly confessing to banging Hitler. That's crazy. Okay, now I get it now. All right, I'm back. I'm back on the same page. I understand the world now. Um, yeah, I'm like I don't like. There's the all of Paris. There's so many other options. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
why we're banging German soldiers that are Nazis, but whatever. Yikes.
Yeah.
We then have the scene of Armand taking Louis on a date to the art gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And Armand's like showing off all of the art. Like basically being like, oh yeah, and I was in the room when this was being painted. And yep, I remember that guy. He's kind of a dick. Like that whole moment. Like,
Yep.
as,
Name dropping,
oh yeah,
pedestrian.
very
Lestat is
much.
also there, eye rolling the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which we as the audience were also doing. It felt like when you go to your high school reunion and you like
Yeah.
went to high school in LA and like basically everyone's like a famous actor now, but like you're still just like the guy that they all went to high school with, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
Where
Yep.
it's like, okay,
They're
cool,
a
Armand.
barista and they're like, I was talking to Sia the other day, and you're like, sir, no, you weren't. You handed Sia a cup with caffeine in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That wasn't a conversation. That was small talk while she was waiting for her drink. Right. Like,
Or like the parent that's like, oh yeah, I used to date Brad Pitt. And it's like, okay, Karen.
yeah, we were like both 6 years old. It was the summer of fucking 82.
Yeah.
Like, ma'am, sit down. Sit down, ma'am, please. We're not playing this game today.
Literally. Like, I don't think Brad Pitt remembers who you are. Sorry.
At all. At all. He was dating 3 other girls that summer. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Best year of his 7-year-old life. Fucking Armand looking at Louis going, I am not Lestat, Louis. And
Yeah.
him and like the camera pans, like murdered me. The camera pans to Armand and he's like, I am not Lestat, Louis. The camera pans back to Louis. Standing next to Louis is Lestat, and at the same time they both go, okay.
It's
Slayed
so
me.
funny.
Slayed me.
Oh my
Murdered,
god.
man. Oh my god. Yeah, okay.
Like, it's the funny thing to me is like the difference of like vibes almost of
Oh my
like
god.
basically like have you ever seen somebody that's dated like strong, independent, like partner of whatever form, like buff, always handles like the manual labor, like can
Uh-huh.
go out, and then it's like the next person they date is like the complete opposite, soft beanpole, like very clingy, and you're
Mhm.
like, okay. Like you went from like one end of the spectrum to the complete opposite end and you're confused why you're unhappy,
Mm,
like we need
mm.
to meet in the middle. Like you don't have to have fierce independence, you don't have to have super clinger, like you
Yeah.
can have like just someone who's a normal human being.
Yep. Like the look on Louis' face, I feel like him and Lestat say it almost the exact same way, except Louis is more like, okay, like
Hmm.
you think you know me. You think you know that like where I'm at, right? Like you think you understand, okay, right?
Yep.
But Lestat's okay is like, okay, right? Like it's
Yep.
very like it's very like,
So funny.
obviously you're not me. Obviously. That goes without
Yeah.
saying. Why are you saying this right now? You're making a fool of yourself, Armand, right? Like that's the
Yep.
energy from Lestat. Oh, the looks on their faces though. Like those two actors have such fantastic chemistry. Like
Hmm.
Lestat is barely in the show anymore, and the two of them are still the same person. Like they're
Yeah.
still arm in arm, right? And I feel like it's in that moment where the show also underscores that what part of what Armand likes about Louis is Lestat.
Hmm.
Like I feel like seeing Louis and Lestat reply the same way just like completely reconnects and re-sews up that theme that like they're two halves of a whole.
Hmm.
And then I'm looking at Armand and I'm like, you felt like you and Lestat were also two halves of a whole, and that is why you're obsessed with Louis. Because if it didn't work out with you and Lestat, and it didn't work out with Louis and Lestat, this is the person you should be with, right? Like this is your
Hmm.
guy. And that's why Armand is like, I'm not Lestat, and Louis is like, no, I'm Lestat.
Yep.
No, I am. It's
Hmm.
me. I'm Lestat. I know you're not Lestat. I know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. Like it's giving gay boyfriends who wear the exact same outfit to a holiday party. That's what it's giving.
Five
Mhm.
mood,
Mhm.
honestly.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I feel that. Speaking of, did you ever watch uh Single All the Way?
Yes.
Oh, love that one.
It's cute.
It's so cute.
Happiest Season though. Did you see that one?
Mm-mm.
That's the lesbian one on Hulu with Kristen Stewart
Oh,
and Dan Levy.
I've watched that.
It's
How have I
fine.
not seen that one actually?
I don't know. You might not have the best time. You might like it, you might not. It's directed and written by Clea Duvall, who is a crush that I've had forever. She's in The Faculty, which is one of my favorite horror movies as a teenager.
Haven't seen that.
Um, that's a great movie if you haven't seen it. It's like the perfect 90s movie.
Uh-huh.
But she it's like a story about this girl who is out of the closet. Kristen Stewart, she's out of the closet. She lives with her girlfriend. They just moved in together. Things are getting serious. She's thinking about asking her to marry her, right? And the girlfriend comes from like a fancy, like wealthy family that she never talks about. And so then she has to go home for the holidays. And Kristen Stewart's like, I'll go with you. I don't have anywhere to go. My parents died when I was young. And she's like, fuck, I can't like leave you home. Like originally she wasn't going to go and she was just going to stay at home. But then her family's like, no, we really need you to come back. And she's like, okay, fine, I'll go. And Kristen Stewart's like, I'll just be here by myself. And she's like, no, you've got to go home with me. So
Mhm.
on the drive there, informs Kristen Stewart, by the way, A, I'm not out to my family. B, they all think you're my roommate. C, we're going to have a really good time. So then the
Oh,
whole movie is Kristen Stewart being there like, how do I explain to these people why I live there? We have nothing in common. We met at a bar, right? Like we don't have any, like there's no lie for me to tell here. Like I literally have to make all of this up, like off the
oh
top of my
God.
head. And there's a bunch of celebrities and stuff in it
Mhm.
that are doing the best they can. But like it's just a very like closeted Christmas story
Mhm.
where I feel like Kristen Stewart should have just like broken up with her girlfriend like in the first 5 minutes of the movie. Like, do not bring me to a holiday function and have been lying about me this entire time. Let me
Yeah.
stay home, right? I'd rather be at my house.
Mhm.
Like, but yeah, if you try to watch it, I'm interested to know what you think. But
Tell me
I
one
was
more time
very
it's
like
called. I'm gonna write it down.
happiest season.
Okay. So then we start getting Armand's backstory when he like dramatically takes him to this other part of the gallery, and like it's like behind a wall, kind of like it's up a bunch of stairs and like does not seem well. Like nobody goes there is what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, "Oh yeah, this is my creator's painting, Magnus. You see that guy right there? That's me." Um,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm like, "Oh,
Awkward.
yep,
He is talking in the third person for like the first half of it though. So at first
mm-hmm,
you're like, is it you?
yeah,
And then it gets real sad and you're like, oh, yeah.
yeah." So we
You were a
find out,
slave. That's pretty rough.
yeah, Armand's parents sold him into slavery. Then he gets bought by a brothel. Then his maker buys him. Then his maker makes him use his brothel talents whenever
Yep.
he has friends come in town, while simultaneously being like, "Oh, you're my like exclusive companion," but also, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So then after a coven kills Magnus, they send Armand to Paris to be like the leader of the Paris vampires.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Which sounds maybe not real.
yeah, I'm like that sounds a
Sounds
little sketch.
a little suspicious.
A little
I don't know.
suspicious.
Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. Um so then Lestat. So then he's like, yeah. Then Lestat comes, and he was also made by Magnus. And I'm like, wait, does that make Lestat older than Armand?
No, I don't think so.
I didn't think so either. But then I was confused because I'm like, how if Armand was Magnus's like pride and joy, his exclusive companion up until the time he died, when would Magnus have made Lestat?
So, um, I think that, um, I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure that Armand is made by Marius, and I think Magnus made Lestat.
Mm.
Hold on, let me see. Let me make sure. Because I remember being like really confused by that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Magnus turns Lestat,
Okay.
but Marius turns Armand. So Magnus and Marius are related. Um, Let me see.
Because I
Who
thought he
is
was saying.
Marius to Lestat?
I thought
Um,
the
I
entire
think people
time.
just get this confused because I'm like looking it up and
Yeah.
people are like,
I thought the entire time Armand was saying Magnus. Was he saying Marius?
no, I'm looking at the Vampire Chronicles wiki.
Okay.
According to Alessandra, the old queen of Armand's coven in Paris, Magnus was 300 years old when he made Lestat.
Okay.
Yeah, Magnus made Lestat. Marius made um I think Marius made um Magnus, I think.
But he was saying that he was hanging out with Magnus the whole time, right? So this whole story was about Magnus, not Marius. So is he saying that at some
Uh
point?
Magnus from the AMC TV series.
Oh, okay, maybe it's different.
Magnus was Lestat's maker.
Hmm.
Yeah, I hate that she named these characters so similarly.
Yeah.
Magnus was 300 when he made Lestat,
Okay.
which was forbidden by the satanic cult of vampires, for it was Magnus's many, many years and making only one fledgling that made Lestat a vampire deemed by them to be too powerful to exist for
Mm.
one so new to the dark gift. So I guess there's rules
Interesting.
about that. And then it says Armand was made by Marius.
Okay.
Marius.
Yeah, because this one also says
Yeah,
Marius. Well,
Marius is like ancient. So the
okay.
fact that so this is what I'm saying. This already differs from the book because in the book, like he says, I mean, he said it yesterday that he killed Marius, that he killed his maker. But in the book, his maker is still alive. He's over 2,000 years old.
Okay.
Um, Hold on.
Yeah, I'm guessing I must have just misheard because this TV show wiki thing is also saying Marius, and that I just
Yeah,
misheard and heard Magnus the whole time.
but I feel like Marius and Magnus know one another. Yeah, see, there's a character called Santino in the
Mm.
Vampire Chronicles as well as Santiago. Like, ma'am, please don't do this to me.
Get more, you know?
Do not do this to me, ma'am. Yeah, so on the page for Marius, I looked up the word Magnus and it does not appear anywhere on this page. So I don't know. I'm confused.
I don't know either.
It says in the late 1600s, he finds out it is indeed Pandora in the company for fledgling Arjun. Their meeting
Hmm.
revitalizes the love Marius has for Pandora. Tells her to rid herself of Arjun. Hmm.
So I guess the coven killed Marius.
Yeah.
Who knows? This is worth a deep dive going to.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, just from like looking over this like wiki, the books are like so extensive. Like she must have had a murder board when she wrote them, man, with like a bunch of red string. After the events of Memnoch the Devil, which is like a fourth or fifth book in the series, Armand reappears with two young mortals. Marius gives them the dark gift, much to their delight, but doing so brings out Armand's anger. So there's like even more Armand like after this
Mm,
that happens and before this that happens. And then they're talking about Maharet, who we see as Jesse's aunt, that's a vampire in
mm-hmm,
Queen of the Damned, the movie.
mm-hmm.
She has a fledgling who finds out that Marius has taken Daniel Malloy under his wing,
Oh,
though he's lost a lot of his mind. And I'm like, okay, so there's even more with fucking Marius and
yeah.
fucking and Armand and Daniel Malloy. Like, all right, anyway. There's a lot going on is the point.
I know. I need a timeline, you know? Like,
Same. I need a big giant timeline where someone goes through and tells me exactly what happens at every point in all of these vampires' lives, because it's very dramatic. There's a lot.
at some point, I've thought about doing that, like on the blog, whenever I just like no longer need money and I can just
Mm-hmm.
like do things on my own whims. I'm gonna be like, here's my thesis and the full timeline on the interview with Vampire Chronicle books. Okay, like,
There's so many. I didn't realize she had published like even more than I had remembered. Like I remember the Vampire Armand coming out and that being a big deal.
mm-hmm,
And then I knew there was like one other book that came out that was supposed to be a big deal
mm-hmm.
that like was really gay, like Gay on Front Street.
Oh,
But like there's like so many more books that I remember. Like I thought there were like 6, but there's like 10 or 14 or something like that. It's wild.
there's the Warrior Cat books.
Mm-hmm.
There's someone like there's 4 people's job or something like that, where their entire uh like their entire job is to be like lore keepers of the world. And like if you pull up the family tree, it like takes forever to load, like on
Mm.
the website, and it's like a
Mm-hmm.
giant mind map. You have to like really far zoom in to
Mm.
like actually look at it. It's very cool. But yeah, that's a world that also has a lot of world building for the fact that they're basically children's books.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Percy Jackson is also getting there, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, it's kind of there
Because now
already.
there's like other like franchises underneath just Percy Jackson, the Olympians.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's also like the Riordan Presents
Yeah.
too.
Yep.
Oh, and then we have Armand threatening Claudia when they're fighting in public, and he's like, "I know about Lestat, and I'll tell everyone."
Dude,
So,
super public fight.
oh
Like
yeah,
on the street. Like on the street. She like walks out of Madeline's shop and he's like there.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Ruthless. Like
crazy.
just awful. Oh my god.
And then we have Santiago listening in, obviously, and then
Obviously.
Claudia fighting with Louis after this and saying, "Love makes you stupid. Go off, Queen." 100%. 100%.
I literally wrote, quote, "Love makes you stupid." That should be on a shirt.
Yep. Yep. It's also one of her Hot Topic shirts for sure.
Yep. Absolutely.
So then Santiago waits for both Claudia and Louis to be out and breaks into their house,
Yep. And he's
goes
looking
through
at
all of her
all their
journals,
stuff.
goes through all their shit, goes through their photos.
Oh,
Um,
wait. Before that, though,
mhm.
Claudia goes back to Louis to fucking tell him that Armand threatened her.
Yeah.
She like comes home and is like, "Louis, we gotta pack our shit. The jig is
Mhm.
up. Armand knows about Lestat. We've got to get the fuck out of here." And Louis like doesn't bat an eye. And she's like, "You know."
Mhm.
And he's
Mhm.
like, "You can trust him." She's like, "We cannot trust this motherfucker.
No,
What is wrong with you? You are so blind. You are
literally.
blind." Like when she says love makes you stupid, like that, like to me, like this is what I'm saying about this actor. She is so good. Like she does a pitch perfect child in the very first
Mhm.
episode when they're like on the road in Ukraine. Like
Mhm.
she blends in with those other kids, right? And then she blossoms into this adult. And I feel like this is the moment that she really comes correct about who she is inside versus how she
Mhm.
looks outside. The tone in her voice, the ring and the shrillness of her voice. And I don't mean shrill in like the fucking patriarchy, you know, lady voice kind of way. I mean like she is on high alert. Like her voice is an alarm bell. And
Yeah.
like I love how like all the complaints and the frustration she has is right out of the book. They just age her up and now she has
Mhm.
more of a leg to stand on because she's not a kid, right? Because she's not
Mhm.
actually a kid. She looks like she's older. This episode, I think, has the most yelling out of any episode of this entire show.
Yeah.
Like, everyone is mad in this episode, and everybody yells the whole time.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, the sneaking
It's
and
crazy.
spying, he, like, looks when he picks up her book that has the bow on the front.
Mm-hmm.
And we already know that the book with the bow on the front is, like, not safe to read. That's where the
Yep.
assault is. That's where a lot of things are. And then he finds the tiny book that she wrote right after she kills Lestat, where she's like, not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I
Mm-hmm.
sank into my couch. It was like the Homer
I know.
Simpson meme where
Yes.
he just goes into the bush.
Mhm.
That was me watching that. I was like,
I know.
These French vampires are so fucking awful. My note says Lestat, Louis and Claudia should have never left America. It's really hard to say that staring 2025 in the face.
I know.
As someone who is like, everyone should leave America, it's really hard to say that Louis and Claudia
Yeah.
shouldn't have left America. Like, ugh.
I've been seeing this like meme where people talk about how their ancestors like escaped to America and we're trying to figure out how to escape back to Italy and stuff like that.
Literally. You want to sell me a house in Italy for $300? Please.
Yeah.
Please do.
Say less. What do I need to do, you know?
I already have a passport. Let's go.
Literally.
Ugh. Then sitting in the fucking park. On
Yes.
the bench.
And Lestat's like, oh yeah, this is going to be when you break up with Armand, right? Right, Louis?
And Louis like, yep, I'm waiting for him to come here so I can tell him.
Mm-hmm.
And Lestat's like, that's good. You know, you should tell him because he's not good for you. Like, that's not who you want to be with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Louis like, no, but like he's here. And Lestat's like, wait. And Louis like Lestat basically asks like, why am I in this suit? Why do I look like this?
Yeah.
Because his hair is pulled back, right? He doesn't look as wild as he does in the other takes, right? Because his clothing changes every time Louis sees him.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's very symbolic. Like, he puts him in the outfit that he loved him in the most.
Yeah.
For this final goodbye. And as he's like it starts to rain. It's so noir. Like, this show does whatever it wants with its tropes, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's the 40s, so noir is perfect for the time period. And he's like in the rain. He has no umbrella. He's sitting next to Lestat. Lestat is getting wet even though he's not really there. And as he's like talking to Louis about why am I in this outfit, he starts to fade.
Mm-hmm.
And he like parts with Louis by saying something special about this suit. I had your name and your initials monogrammed into the inner pocket so that you would always be there cradling my heart. Like, honestly, if somebody had stabbed me in the eye, it would have hurt less.
Yep.
Than hearing that. And then he vanishes, and in his place is Armand in like a fedora. Mm-hmm. And it's super like Casablanca, right? It's super Casablanca. It's super, we'll always have Paris. Except he's like, we're in Paris. Let's go, baby. I'm taking you back home. I'm here for you. I'm like, he's not here for you, Louis.
No. And the worst part is like Louis and Lestat were so toxic, but why do I want them back together? You know what I mean?
Want them back together more than anything in this world. More than anything in this world. Like, honestly, I will write all of the letters I have to. Okay? Anne Rice is dead. You can put them back together if you want. There's no one here to stop you, AMC. Okay? No one. Not a soul. Like, they are so perfect. Anyone who is listening that is a connoisseur of homosexual media, like I am, I love being up on my queer media. If you've not seen Brokeback Mountain, this is your prompt to do so. It is beautiful and understated. It is hard to watch, but also very easy to watch. Jake Gyllenhaal and fucking Heath Ledger are giving the best performances of their careers, quite frankly. It is a movie that deserved every fucking lauding that it got. The end of that movie, which, spoilers, but it's been out for like 20 years. The end of that movie depicts Heath Ledger going home to his character's name is Ennis, and he's going to Jake Gyllenhaal's house, Jack Twist. And there's a scene in the beginning of the movie where Jack Twist like Heath Ledger, like Jack Twist like needs a shirt and Heath Ledger gives him one when they're up on the mountain together. Because that's really what the movie is about. These two men meet each other. They're both farmhands working this one job one summer up in the mountains herding sheep, and that's how they fall in love, right? And it's all about like how they couldn't be together because they were gay, and it was, you know, the early 20th century and whatever. So there's a scene early in the movie where Heath Ledger like loses a shirt, right? He can't find his shirt anywhere. He goes back home after the summer is done, and the two of them break it off because they can't keep it up, right? But they keep writing letters to each other, and they keep in touch as each guy goes and gets married and has like a life and everything, and they keep in correspondence. So Heath Ledger never finds this shirt, right? Can't find it anywhere. All these years go by. Again, sorry for spoilers, but eventually Jack dies. So Heath Ledger one day is like an old man, right? And he's like, I gotta go see Jack. I gotta go find my guy, right? I gotta go talk to his parents. Like, I miss him. So he hears Jack dies. He goes to his parents to talk to them. His parents are weird with him. He doesn't know why the parents are weird. The mom is like, hey, why don't you go up to his room? We were actually going to give away all his things. Like, he's dead now and there's nothing we can do. But we kept his room how he had it when he was younger, right? When you guys were, you know, first met. So Heath Ledger goes upstairs and he sees his closet, right? And he's like sitting on Jack's bed, and like everything is reminding him of his lover.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks into the closet and he sees a shirt there. And he's like, oh man, maybe I can take one of his shirts. His mom said I can take anything from this room that I want. She gave me a little paper bag. So I'll take one of his shirts. So he goes to grab the shirt that he's wearing in the scene where they fall in love, right? And he pulls it out of the closet, and tucked inside of Jack's shirt is the shirt Ennis lost all those years ago. Inside of
No.
his shirt in the closet, symbolizing their love from fucking 30 years ago, right?
Oh God.
It will hurt you for hours after you watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Heath Ledger was a fantastic performer. He plays a character in this movie that is like, you know, everybody has that grandpa that doesn't say much,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's probably seen some shit and just goes, yep, right? Like, just doesn't
Mm-hmm.
really speak a lot. That's the character that Heath Ledger plays. So if you imagine your grandpa, right, your papa or your granddaddy or whatever, find like seeing this very obvious expression of love, how he would react as he cries into this t-shirt, right, into
Uh,
this button-down shirt. Like, it is it's so brutal and gorgeous. And like, this scene in Interview with the Vampire is like, it shakes hands with that perfectly. Like, from a film perspective and from like an homage perspective, I actively wonder if the people who made that show and who wrote that episode had that in there, because that doesn't come from the book, right? That
mm-hmm.
doesn't come from anything. That's not something Anne Rice wrote. So
Mm-hmm.
part of me is like, is this a nod to other queer media? That's important, because that is very much an Ennis and Jack moment,
Oh,
of like, oh, my monogram was next to my heart at all times so that you were always with me. Like, fucking kill me, dude. Throw me off a bridge. Like,
I know. I
I
know.
cannot with these boys. I cannot. Oh,
So good.
then fucking here's Armand lighting Louis' cigarette in the rain. Like, Jesus Christ. Ugh. 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 Even talking about it is really getting me in my feelings. I'm getting in my feelings real bad.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
After all of that, like heartwarming stuff too, and we have like the like against the other side of Santiago breaking through their house while all of this like touching moment, sad
Mhm.
moment is going on. Santiago's rummaging through the house. Then we also are pulled out to Daniel sitting there on the couch as like Armand and Louis are screaming at each other,
Like, screaming at the
screaming,
top of each
shaking the
other's lungs.
walls.
Oh my God. Finally, he has a moment of freedom, though, Daniel, because Armand is distracted.
No, at the same time, Armand's still giving him flashes
Oh,
while,
that's true. Yeah.
yeah, while Louis and Daniel are fighting. Armand's like on one half of his brain flashing Daniel, being like, "This is your fault. You
I
started
wonder if
this."
it's. I wonder if it's to distract him from like knowing what they're fighting about, because he's not
Maybe,
able to pay attention.
maybe.
Yikes. Yeah, but then he goes into his computer because he's
Mhm.
like, I'm getting all these weird flashes. What's that about? And like looks up through the Talamasca's fucking like back catalog,
Mhm.
and there's surveillance footage of
Mhm.
him going to the interview in 1979. Like,
Yep.
him as a young man walking around like in the street with Louis, and then a picture of him being carried out of the interview
Mhm.
by Louis and Armand.
And then we have Daniel listening to the original end of the recording,
because it's
And
the Talamasca's version of the recording, like they were listening in on his fucking conversation.
mm-hmm.
Ah.
And it's Armand being like, Louis, what are you even doing? Like
Mhm.
basically stopping Louis from killing Daniel.
Mhm.
Crazy. And then we
Totally.
had to stop and pause so that
Yep.
we can do the next episode. Oh my god. Crazy. It's getting very intense very quickly.
Honestly, like that show leaves me breathless every time.
Yeah.
It's so hard not to push next episode, like
I
with the
know.
adrenaline.
I know. Like we would have been so full and binged it had we not
Yeah.
been talking
We have
about.
to we have to be good because when I binge things, then I get all the episodes confused.
Yeah, same. Same. Well, that's all we have for this episode. Candace, where can the people of the internet find you and all the stuff you're working on?
So you can find me on social at the Candace Marie on Blue Sky, Twitter less these days as well. And then you can find me at Candace Magnificent pretty much everywhere else. I am a VO actor and TTRPG performer. You can hear more of my VO work in the audio drama Partial Veil if you like cosmic horror. It's very, very good, as well as the video game Monaco 2, which is coming out, I think, in Q1 or Q2 of 2025. You can hear more of my TTRPG performance work on the podcast Three Black Halflings, The City of the Black Rose, Herald of Shadows, Frequencies, Bloom and Blight, and more, wherever you catch your pods.
Killing it.
Thanks.
Killing it.
Trying.
And we will see you all here in 2 weeks. Same time, same place. Bye, everybody.
Bye.